And with me today, I welcome Coach Nami, the founder of the Mind Quotient, a mission-driven organization dedicated to empowering individuals on their journey of self-discovery and healing. After uncovering her own complex PTSD, Nami transformed her life by blending personal healing practices with over 15 years of coaching and mentoring experience. Her signature framework, the Mind Quotient, provides practical tools to help people manage emotional triggers, cultivate self-awareness, and rise from trauma to step fully into their purpose. As a dynamic speaker, Nami openly shares her journey from pain to purpose, inspiring diverse audiences to embrace courage and create meaningful change in their lives. Believing that trauma can serve as a profound teacher, she leads with vulnerability and compassion, guiding others to find empowerment in the healing process. Welcome to the show, Nami. An absolute honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Anu. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, me too. So, Nami, it'd be great for you to share a bit about your own journey and, what led you to found the Mind Quotient and how did your personal healing journey shape this mission?
Oh, thank you for asking me that. It was 2020 during the pandemic is when I became a life coach. And I was in the coaching school, and I remember thinking, this is going to be so easy. I'm just going to go quickly get a certificate in coaching and bring that to my corporate career.
Mm,
That's what I thought I was doing. What I didn't know is that I had started to open Pandora's box, per se, the figurative Pandora's box, because that is probably what started my own healing journey, is that step towards becoming a life coach. And once I graduated from coaching school, we all started to practice. And I had already been going very in depth with some of my practices. But what I realized is that while I was on this healing journey and I was learning so much about myself, I was uncovering more and more layers to everything that I was going through. And it was on that journey that I uncovered that I have complex PTSD, which I actually found to be very revolutionary for me because once I understood what complex PTSD was, it meant that I had the power within me to do a lot of healing. So I went on that journey. But when I looked back on when I started this journey and my healing journey, like at the very, very beginning, and I wasn't aware that I was living with trauma, and I was living in a state of perpetual suffering. I didn't look like it on the outside, but on the inside, I was so unhappy, constantly getting triggered, not being able to experience life in a very fulfilling way or a meaningful way, despite having so many amazing things in my life. And when I looked back a couple of years into my healing journey, I said, wow, I wish that I had known earlier, or I wish I had a tool that would have maybe given me the insight into what was going on earlier. And that's actually how the Mind Quotient started, because it was in the middle of the pandemic that I was having all these thoughts. And I noticed that there were some of us who were using certain tools, and they all had to do with the inside. And we were the ones who seemed to be thriving, especially in the coaching community, because you're doing so much of this inner work constantly. And when I looked at so many others, whether it was friends or family or just people that I heard of or people on the news or whatever, they were like just trying to survive. And so when I saw that big difference, I was like, this work that we do is so, so, so important. So why don't we all just use the standardized language? That
mm,
way, everybody who would understand, like, this is the important work, kind of like IQ or EQ, it's actually emotional intelligence. We call it emotional quotient. We just adapted it because it's like a standardized way of thinking. And and then when I searched and searched, I couldn't find it. And so that's actually how the Mind Quotient started. And so the mission of the Mind Quotient is to establish the third quotient, not IQ, not EQ, but MQ, which is this inner work. And it's because of my own journey. I actually got asked recently, like, why you? Like, why are you a thought leader in this?
mm,
Why would anybody listen to you? And actually, I don't. have, lots of letters behind my name or anything that I would say makes me a particular expert on this. But what I do have is this incredible life experience and almost like proof that if you do this very simple practice of self-awareness plus self-management, you will start to experience life in a more fulfilling and meaningful way.
Wow, thank you so much. So, take us through your journey. I mean, so
Yes.
you started to realize that you were living with complex PTSD.
Yeah.
What exactly was the kind of leading cause of all of that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because it's a little trick. So complex PTSD is more talked about recently, and it's not even, there's a, I'm not a medical professional, but I know that, I don't think it's a formal diagnosis yet, and they're trying to get it, and the DSM and things like that. So when I first heard of it, I didn't even know what it was. Of course I had heard of PTSD, but I didn't know what complex PTSD was. So I sat with it and I asked myself one question, which was, when have I ever felt unsafe? Because complex PTSD is living in states of trauma for an extended period of time and different types of trauma. So I asked myself that. And when I looked back on my childhood, I could see that there were times I felt unsafe as a child. I had severe childhood bullying. I had sexual abuse. I had sexual harassment. I had narcissistic abuse in my life. Like there were so many different periods of time, and some of these were going on for anywhere from like a year to 20 years of
Wow.
time. And so when I asked myself the question, when have I ever felt unsafe, all these periods of time started to rise up to the surface. And that's when I put it all together is when I realized that, oh wow, like this is why it's so complex. And this is where so much of my inner state is coming from. But the most amazing thing about trauma healing is that you can actually heal. It's like it's one of the therapies that you can actually rewire your neurological system and have actual healing. So it's very transformative in that regard. And I think I appreciated so much that I could actually do something about it. And so it was a little hard, it's very hard to admit that there's, a history of abuse and there's a period of like going through like this whole like why me? Why did I have to experience all these different types of abuse? The first time I met with my trauma therapist and I told her everything I walked through, all these different periods of, abuse and trauma. Her question to me was, how did you survive?
Wow.
And I literally looked at her and I said, oh my God, was I not supposed to?
Wow.
And I, I remember thinking that there's something in there that was like, oh wow, like it's so dramatic that somebody would actually ask that question. And sitting with that was like, it felt very overwhelming. But it's it's kind of like going through the dark. Like I definitely would say that like when I uncovered the complex PTSD, which had been there all the time, it's just I became aware of it. And I went into the depths of understanding what it was and then the healing process. I had to go into the dark. That's the thing about trauma like recovery is that you have to actually go pretty far into the depths of the darkness that's inside of you. But that is where the light is. And so, just like I say that, inside the pain is where the healing is, inside the dark is where the light is. And so, in a way, the reason that I like to share so much of my own journey is because I I had the courage to do it. And I'm hoping by sharing my story that somebody who may be thinking about it or may be unaware of it may start thinking about it and say like, "Oh my gosh, maybe I can be like that on the other side." And here's the thing, it never really truly ends. It's constantly a journey, right? It's called a healing journey. But I have so much more peace and light and positivity in my life. And a lot of it is because I was willing to go into the dark to find the light.
So true. Yeah, I fully agree with that, and it's like you can't really appreciate happiness unless you've been sad.
Yes, yes. They say, like, you don't appreciate health till you've been sick. You don't appreciate, like you
Mm.
said, happiness until you've been sad. You don't
Polarity.
appreciate really good food until you've had some
Bad
really
food.
like bad food.
Right.
It's true for anything. And that's right. That's right, and so, yeah, you're right. I really appreciate moments of joy. Like I like really do experience emotions very, very fully. And it's because I've experienced the other side very fully, like very deep, deep sadness and, sorrow and suffering and betrayal and all the other emotions. That's why I can feel joy and happiness and light and, all those other emotions fully too.
And so, did you notice a lot of patterns? Because, we get stuck in this
Yes.
trauma cycle, don't we? I mean, a lot of it is, we start to attract the wrong people into our lives who may take advantage of us and, traumatize us even further. Were you finding similar patterns in your life?
Yes. Yes. And, you know, to tell you the truth, I think some of them are still there.
Interesting.
So, and that's why I said like it's a constant journey. One of the things that I did definitely notice is that I often was getting myself into situations or relationships where there was a complete imbalance between the way that I was showing up in the relationship or situation versus the other person. And there's something to do with my staying in it. And I want to stay there for a minute because when I talk about trauma and trauma healing and I see a lot of the things that people put out there, I understand. We talk a lot about the abuser. We're
Mm,
spending a lot of time focused on the abuser. But there's also this whole other side to it, which was especially as an adult. And I want to definitely preface this with like, this is when I was experiencing things as an adult, there was something there that was what was going on inside of me that was making me stay in the situations. And when I finally was able to break the pattern, because it came up my entire life. I mean, it's been the pattern most of my life. And when I looked back, I realized that the reason that I kept falling into these patterns was actually boiled down to lack of self-love and lack of self-worth, which came from the trauma. And so as I started to heal my trauma, what happened is that self-love and self-worth increased. I mean, it was probably like not non-existent. In fact, I even have gone so far as saying I used to hate myself. So when you hate yourself, like imagine how far you have to swing the pendulum to start loving yourself. Like you have to go through even just not hating yourself and then liking yourself before you can love yourself.
true.
And it's as I have been investing more time in understanding my self-worth and loving myself, I find myself attracting those patterns less. I'm not fully there because I still see some patterns showing up here and there, but it's definitely less than it used to be. And I have way more awareness than I used to have.
Interesting. Wow. And so I know that self-awareness is a big process which you go through with your clients. So how
Mhm.
did that actually help you in transforming your life and turning your pain into purpose?
Oh, I love that because one of the things about going on a transformative journey is that you change along the way. And there may be some things about your life that you want to change. And I like to focus, especially if I'm working with clients or speaking, is well, let's start with within. What can you change within? And the truth is, you can't change what you're not aware of. And so I have this calculation, which is not founded in any scientific, not like facts or I'd proven in any way, but I say that like self-awareness is 75% of the work because if once you become self-aware, then it's what are you going to do about it? But getting to that self-awareness can take quite a bit of time investment and emotional investment and all of that. And so, in particular, if I relate it back to my own story, the thing I became most self-aware of is how I show up. And one of the things that, as you learn more about trauma, and anybody who's recovering from trauma and abuse may be very familiar with this, is the triggers that
Mm,
come. And so every time and as somebody who had complex PTSD, I didn't have just one trigger. I had like dozens of triggers. And so
mm,
I'm constantly getting triggered left and right back before I started my trauma healing journey. So every time I got triggered, I would know that there's something to heal there. Like there's something happening in this space that I need to heal. And it's the same self-awareness I have right now. So mine lies a lot in the triggers. And one of the things, and so what the mind quotient is it's self-awareness plus self-management, is that if I'm ever getting triggered or I feel like I'm not at my best, I can actually look back and start seeing what is going on inside me that may have gotten me there. And it's pretty simple, actually. Did I sleep enough last night? Did I spend some time quieting my mind? Have I done something for myself recently, today or the day before? Have I been eating on time, like proper foods? Have I basic like self-care plus mindset plus some of the things that bring us joy? When you start to become aware of these things that, give you positive energy and make you feel good, then you become very aware of like, oh, this is how I'm showing up today. And I would find that I would get more triggered if I wasn't doing those things. And so
mm.
that's actually what the Mind Quotient tool is. It's a tool to start examining what's going on inside of you. Because once you decide that you want your life to be different or you want to show up differently, then your mind has the power to do whatever you want it to do. It's the most powerful tool we have. We
Yeah,
can actually master it rather than letting it master us, which is what happens when you're in a state of trauma. Your mind is the master instead of you being the master.
true. Oh, wow. Yeah, so true. And do you have any kind of practical tools or techniques from the Mind Quotient which my listeners can start using today to navigate any emotional challenges?
Oh, yes. It's very bespoke because it's what works for you. But
Mm,
what I would say is the most practical tool that you can use is you start to, I would actually even encourage, make a list of, this is the most practical thing. This is what I have my clients do. Make a list and split it into two columns. Take a piece of paper and split it into two columns. On one side of it, write down 10 to 20, however many you can think of, but write down at least 10 things that give you energy or make you feel good or bring joy to your life, like somehow bring some positivity to you, or renew your energy. I'm talking like going on a walk, drinking a glass of water, playing with your pet, journaling, meditating, however that is for you, creating, exercising, reading. These are some examples. Playing an instrument. These are just some examples, but make a list of the things that you like everything that makes you feel good or makes you feel better if you're ever feeling down. And then right on the other side, right next to it, in the second column, write down how many minutes each of those takes. So drinking a glass of water might take you, let's say 2 minutes if you have to like go fill it up, drink it, and then all the way to maybe moving your body would take like 30 minutes. And
mm,
then if you, if you're ever feeling down and you've either gotten triggered or you're just not feeling great and
mm,
you have some self-awareness around it, pick up that list, look at how much time you have. Oh, I have 10 minutes and look at what you can do for 10 minutes or
mm,
look at what you can do for 5 minutes. And if you keep doing that every day, your MQ will be high. Is
yeah.
basically, it's very simple. It's not complicated at all. Anybody can do it, right? It's just the intention of wanting to do it.
Wow. Okay, interesting. Yes. Oh, wow. And it's very simple. I mean, it's not like, you're having to go out your comfort zone.
No.
It's like,
No, it's
very
just bringing
simple.
structure to it. So actually a former scientist, so I believe it's probably the scientist in me plus the life coach plus I was in corporate communications. So I think what happens is it's that structure that we need, that standardized methodology and structure to this work that we do. That's what the mind quotient is providing. It's whatever you want it to be. But having that methodology of like, hey, I don't feel great. Oh my gosh, actually, I feel kind of low. Let me do something about it. Oh, wait, there's all these like five things that usually make me feel pretty good pretty quickly. Which
Mm.
of those things am I going to do? And then do them.
Yeah, just do. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of
And
course.
so how can we actually break down the stigma and shame often associated with trauma and mental health challenges?
Oh gosh, yes. You know, I am so thankful that I am not afraid of sharing my story
Wow.
because I think that that is part of it. I
Mm,
think that, the more we talk about it, the more we share it, you have a podcast, you bring people on, which is so honorable, having them speak about whatever they're gone through or their expertise in the space. And it's more and more of that. Oh, you know what it is? It's bringing it to the light. You know, when
yeah.
you shine a light on anything that's in the dark,
Mm,
that's when it no longer becomes a dark thing. And so that's how I look at my trauma because I don't think it's anything dark. I think it serves a purpose. It's I'm here to help. I'm here to show that, even in this all these different traumatic things that have happened to me, I was able to find, so much light, have this, fulfilling life and still, you know, um, be able to speak about it and live with it. Now, here's the thing. Somebody who's listening to this might actually think, oh, she doesn't really know, or oh, she's on the other side or something. No, that is not true. That's like
mm,
every day. Every day there's something that happens. I'm in the middle of a divorce that's been going on for 2 years. You can't even imagine.
mm,
But I can tell you that my life is filled with light. And it's because I choose to talk about it. I choose to not be ashamed of it. I have a workshop where I talk about harnessing your vulnerability. And so this is not, and I take the workshop attendees through this practice where I say, I want you to jot down a few things that you keep very private and don't share. Because it's really easy to be vulnerable about the things that we don't mind if they see the light. Now, write down a few things that you don't want to share that you think might be used against you. And then I have them find how that particular vulnerability has given them strength. Like, what
mm,
did you learn from this? What did it give you? What did it teach you? How have you gained something from that experience that you don't like sharing with people? And then I have them practice incorporating it into their life narrative and then share it with others who are in that workshop. Because what happens is that it can never be a vulnerability unless you are afraid of what it's going to do to you. But if it becomes a source of strength, you're no longer vulnerable, which literally means like open
mm.
to attack.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think that if we can learn to make our vulnerabilities or anything that we think might be shameful as part of our story and where it gave us strength, like as a source of strength, then we will start to reduce the shame around it.
Oh, yes. And do you think, does that link to living authentically as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When I did an exercise recently where I looked through every time in my life where I felt more oppressed or, I felt like I was suffering or not, living in the light and experiencing life in a not so meaningful way versus every time I felt like I was living in alignment. The theme between the two was every time I was living in truth authentically.
Wow.
It was like I made a list. I just made a list of times that I felt like life was happening to me versus times that I felt like, I felt good about everything that I had done in life. And it all came down to the same thing. It all came down to authenticity.
Um, oh my goodness. So do you find like the majority of the clients that you see and people who, you meet, a majority find it hard to be truthful to themselves?
Oh, yes. Well, this is so interesting. When you said that, I actually realized that most of the people that I know actually are living life authentically, but that's because you attract who you are.
Yeah.
So if I look back, I can definitely see how life was completely inauthentic
Yeah.
and, not completely, but very much so. And then now when I look at it, I do have a lot of people in my life that are living in alignment and do have that sense of, being able to be their true selves.
Yeah.
But when I think about clients or people in workshops, I would say that, or just in general, I mean, well, you and I were talking right before we started recording about social media.
Yeah.
Well, social media, sometimes I record the same video and I just started doing this, but I'll record it like 3 or 4 times because I made a mistake in it. Why am I doing that?
Yeah. Why do we do
Why am
that?
I doing that? That's
Perfectionist.
not authentic. Or, like filters and all these things. Like, I don't understand a lot of this stuff on social media, but, I'm in and of itself, if I took 20 pictures and then post one, that's not authentic. So I feel like it's pervasive in our society about, not being, why don't we post that first kind of awkward, not so posed photo? Like let's get back to the very, very basics of that's authentic. Like
That's
why
it.
like why do we not do that? So I feel like it's everywhere. And as much as we can support each other and put a lot of more likes on that very awkward, unposed, blurry, not I think blurry photos are actually in, but like
Yeah.
not so nicely posed photo, then
Un
maybe we could start
Unfiltered.
changing the narrative.
I think, yeah, people put those hashtags no filter, don't they?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that actually.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And also vulnerability. So that's empowered you to create a meaningful impact in others' lives. And so I guess, that all links to being sharing your story. That's being vulnerable, and letting go of the shame.
Yes.
Mm.
Every time I have an opportunity to share more of my story, or now every time I am putting up these public videos, because that's what it's one thing to be talking about it in a workshop or at a conference in a, closed environment, but when you put yourself out there publicly on a podcast recording,
Mm.
um, on any type of social media, then it starts to feel less heavy,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know? It starts to feel like lighter because I'm sharing more and more. And, I'm still not at the place where I share like full details, but we'll get there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. It is. And like the more we share, then, the more baggage gets released because we
Yeah.
hold all the trauma in our bodies. And so by
Yeah.
actually releasing that, we become lighter.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really nice.
I love that. Thank you. And so what daily practices help you maintain mental and
Ooh.
emotional balance?
My daily practices are I don't do all the things, but I do a mix of some of the things. And remember that list I mentioned? And so
Yeah.
I actually do follow that. I'll see how much time I have, and accordingly, I'll fit in what I need to. And what I try to do is I'm the type of person who, if I start my day with the highest energy, I find that I will be able to maintain a high MQ throughout the day and be less susceptible to getting triggered. And so I like to, I do meditate almost every morning. If I don't meditate, then I journal. And I also like to do some type of body movement. So whether it's like yoga at home or going to the gym or, on weekends, like doing a workout class or something, I do like to do all that in the morning. I also I've become very mindful about what I'm putting in my body and what I'm consuming because I have found the link between all of that. And that's very helpful. The other things that I do is that I do a lot of breathing throughout the day. So the one tip that I can give, and like I said, different things work for different people, but our breath is such a source of coming back to ourselves. And I find that like even throughout the day, if I'm just feeling off, just taking like a few deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth is a great way of becoming recentered. And so that's been very helpful. And then I do other things that bring me joy. I'm very keen on like focus on yourself first. I'm a working mother, and it is really important that in order to show up as the best version of ourselves for our family, our friends, work, whoever it may be, we have to take care of ourselves first. And I do that. I will sometimes say, you guys all need something from me, but I first need to do this for myself so that I can show up for you.
True.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I do also take a lot of baths.
Do you? Oh, love that.
I,
Yeah.
like 3 to 4 a week, like that, like
Ah,
religiously. Like I'm very, very particular about this one thing. That is my favorite thing to do for myself.
love that. Oh my goodness. That's amazing. What do you do? Just sit there and just close your eyes and just relax.
Oh yes, yes. Sometimes music, sometimes a face mask, sometimes those eye patches that are really nice. You know, and some of my and all three of my kids like baths too. So I think it's just our practice that we do for ourselves.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. That's amazing. But this is it. You have to fill your cup, and that's how you fill
Yes.
your cup.
Yes, absolutely. And that is everything. That's going to get you through the dark days and the tough days. And we have to do it. We have to take care of ourselves.
And I just find like, we're just culturally we're fighting, all the ancestral traditions about how, children come first and we shouldn't be, worrying about ourselves so much. We should worry about our children's more. I just find it's a constant battle just trying to educate people. No, we
Yes.
come first.
Yes. And you know what I love is every time we do it. So I'll just give you an example. I actually had a mother who was really great at modeling this for me. I didn't do a great job of learning it until later, like once I, went into my job. But now looking back, I can see, oh, she definitely used to do things for herself. But I do find that now that I'm doing it, I'm noticing that I'm modeling it for my children. And my friends, like sometimes like my friends will be like, "Oh, you're doing, well, maybe I should do that. Oh, you have all these things going on in your life, but you are going to, go take a bath. Let's just stick with that example." And I'm like, "Yeah, you bet I am. So should you." Like, and I find that by sharing it and by doing it, we almost like give permission and other to others in our lives and model for our children that this is how you do it, you
That's
know?
how you roll. That's how you roll. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jump on the
Yeah, I love
train.
that.
Oh,
It's not easy, but you have to have that sense of not worrying about what others think. And the
that's
more you
huge.
focus on yourself, the more it comes.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, it's like we manifest it.
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah. I
ah,
just realized that just now when I said it. I was like, oh, it comes over time because the more we do it, the more it's like muscles, like we're learning to use those muscles.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And so, what's your ultimate vision now for the mind quotient and its impact on trauma recovery?
Oh, so my goal this year is for the message of the Mind Quotient to reach 1 million people.
Wow.
And so that is like this is my sole focus for 2025
Mm,
is speaking, educating, sharing as much as possible so that remember that awareness piece, if we
yeah,
can just start to become aware. Like
yeah.
if I can like just almost like and it's for who anybody who wants it. I love when people ask me who's the mind quotient for. I'm like humans? Who's your niche?
You?
Humans?
Me?
But the truth is that it's for anybody who wants it. And so I do think that for anybody who's looking for something, like I don't feel great, I'm in a dark time, I'm going through trauma, I believe everyone has trauma because everybody who was alive in 2020 has, it's to some degree, felt unsafe in their lives. And so degrees of it, of course. And, starting to realize how that may be impacting their lives, triggering them, and then saying, okay, but I have the power to do something about it. And it starts with my mind, and
Oh,
I'm going to.
yes, 100%. Oh, beautiful. And so where can my listeners find you?
Oh, yes. Well, the best place to find any information is my social media at Coach Nami or at the Mind Quotient, which is the handles for all the different media out there.
Yeah.
You can also find me on my website, coach-nami, nami.com. And yeah, we are sharing more and more every day and lots more to come.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. And I see a bright future ahead for you. And I know you'll be hitting those million listeners and even more. So keep sharing your wisdom and your amazing energy. You know, you are
Thank
like
you.
as soon as I jumped on this call with you, instantly I see your light. You know,
Oh,
you are
thank you for saying that.
yeah, you're a light worker. You're here to share
Yes.
joy and you're here to educate and you're on the right journey. So continue doing this amazing work.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yes. Hoping to, help others, spark others' light.
Yes, exactly. And listeners, yes, so that is all we have time for today. That went really fast. And please do get in touch with Coach Nami if you have any questions about her amazing work that she does. And, you know, if you have any questions about this episode, then we always love to hear from you. And again, it's been an absolute honor having you on, Nami. And
Thank
yes,
you so much. I know it
thank
was an
you.
honor to be here.
Excellent. I'll see everyone in the next episode. Stay blessed and take care, my friends.